There we go. That's what's feeding your home. That tiny little wire, 7200 volts, and at 10 amps that'll burn off. Hey, what's up everyone? It's Sunday, it's raining out, and we just got called into work. So I'm not quite sure what exactly we're going to be getting into in this video. Dispatch just called, said there was no power, about 45-minute drive out of town. But what we're going to do for the video is two things. We're going to announce the winner of the giveaway for the fractal wood burning contest that we dropped a video for last month. Other than that, we're going to jump in the truck, check, see what the comments are on the call. We'll bring you guys along for the ride. So there's only one customer to power. That could change sometimes out of town, a sideline that might have even, let's say, 20 customers. At first, one might call, assuming all the others have called. We're really getting some progress with our smart meter installation, which will help situations like that. They'll be able to tell from the signal in the meters who actually does and doesn't have power. The comments say there was a bang, so it's likely not a breaker. Customer heard a loud bang about 5 minutes ago. They're unsure of the cause and unsure if their neighbors have lost power. So we'll hit en route, we'll shut down the camera while we're driving, and we'll let you guys know when we get there. Alright guys, so we're pretty well here. I'm just making one quick stop. Now, normally I would do this as I'm rolling by, but what I want to do, as we're on the sideline, three-phase sideline, I'm checking to make sure that all the cutouts are closed in right here, which they are. There is a chance, as I mentioned earlier, that maybe there's a bigger outage than we anticipated. So just as I'm going by these, take a quick look, make sure they're closed in. Now, that's probably not quite what you expected to see here. So what these guys are on the right, super dark, cloudy day out, so it's hard to see. On the right hand side of the screen, those are trip savers, 80 amp trip savers. They function much like a recloser. One is installed individually on each phase, and they fit in a standard cutout bracket. We do actually purchase a cutout that's a little bit more rugged for the use of those. They're quite heavy. And all you need on the pole is those trip savers, but we've changed something on our system that anywhere that there is trip savers, we put a backup set of cutouts with solid blades. Zoom in a little bit here. So that's a load break cutout with a solid copper blade, good for 300 amp. That way, instead of resetting and closing in those trip savers and picking up load, they're quite heavy, they can be tricky to close. We'll open the backup cutouts, reset and close the trip savers back in, and then pick up the load on the solid blade cutouts. Now, at the top of the screen, the cutouts without a door in them, that's a bypass. If we want to do any maintenance to that pole, we can close in that bypass paralleling the feed, and then open the trip savers and the bottom set of cutouts. So we're about halfway there now. One more quick stop. The three-phase went down to two-phase, and from this structure on it goes down to single-phase. So this structure also has a cutout, which is a 300 amp solid blade. Kind of hard to see with that tree in behind it there. There you can see now. It's got a copper door. That's not fused. Basically just an isolation point. The reason that's not fused, if there's any trouble down this single phase line, which goes for like 150 span, it'll give the fault a chance to clear at those trip savers. If that was fused, anytime anything at all, any squirrel hit this single phase sideline, it would knock power out to the entire line. Where if it's fairly insignificant fault, it'll bump the trip saver and automatically close itself back in. So why have this switch there at all? That's so we can isolate this piece of line if it is a major fault. So if I had have shown up and one of those trip savers were open and it was the one feeding this single phase line and it was clear up to this point, and then let's say there was primary down from a tree or something at the very end of the line, I could isolate at this location. Actually, there's a few more of these as we go along. So the closest switch to the fault location, I would open it, remove the door, and then I could go back and close in those trip savers and energize the majority of the customers to reduce the size of the outage while we make repairs. All right, we're here. So the cutout is open. We'll take a look at that in just a second. This is actually the location years ago, I want to say a good 3 years ago, that the transformer fell off the pole, and we were able to capture that call in a video we made quite a while ago. So transformer's still on the pole. That's a good sign. So I have no idea as of yet why that cutout's open. It's a single phase sideline. No trees around it at all. You can see here the cutout is open. Didn't look like they got much rain here in town. It absolutely poured. I imagine they did get some rain, so something to consider would be a bad insulator. That dead end unit there, that old style porcelain bell, they do have a bit of a reputation for getting cracks in them. It's possible that bell's cracked and it was tracking through to that down guy. If that was the case, we'd probably see some fractal burning around the bolt of that down guy. And I don't see any burn marks at all. The fuse tail, it's not all blown to pieces. It looks like it's fairly intact. Probably not a major fault. It's not the lightning arrestor because that's on the source side of the cutout. That's an old porcelain cutout too. If I had another guy with me, I'd probably change that cutout in that dead end unit. But there's no one anywhere as close at all to the area, so we'll just restore this gentleman's power for now and put in a work order to get that stuff changed at a later date. Unless, of course, we go to close it in, close it open again, or if I have to call another guy here to work on the primary or something. So my next step at this point will be to drive the line. We'll go in those 4 or 5 poles. Pretty well, not a whole lot to check on the standard poles here, but it's got a newer style insulator in that pole, no burn marks around the pin. Oh, you can see there now, the cutout is open on that transformer pole. So ideally, if there was a fault on the transformer side of that cutout, it should have cleared that cutout and that cutout only. Sometimes for a single customer, the fuse quite low, so it has appeared to take out both this cutout and the one feeding the overhead primary. This is a brand new transformer and brand new cutout that we hung when that fell a couple years ago. So what I'm doing now is checking for any dead animals. Doesn't seem to be any, but the grass is pretty hard to see through the grass. I do have a feather sitting there. Could come off a bird or something. Oh yeah. You just see the beak sticking up, sitting on top of the transformer. That's unfortunate for that little fella. It's kind of strange. All the primary is covered up there. The bushing has a bushing guard, a bird wire going to both the lightning arrestor and the cutout. I'm going to pull that animal down with a hot stick. The reason we want to do that, if I leave that guy up there, it could be an owl or a hawk or something come by and land for a free lunch, and being a larger bird of prey that would go after that guy, we don't want him landing on top of that transformer and causing another problem. So we'll close the transformer first. That way we're only operating one switch live. Might as well clear the fault, close her in, and then we'll go back to the takeoff. So this transformer, I can close the transformer in without talking to my dispatch. when I call to get permission to energize the sideline, I'll mention that it was open, we already closed it back in, and that we found the problem. Alright, so we've got the transformer closed in, we've got the bird removed. A couple things to mention. A good thing to check with your employer, what's their expectations on animals. For example, that house there, I've seen some kids' toys on the front porch. Maybe they've got a dog or a cat or something. Personally, I'm not going to leave that bird at the butt of the pole for one of the kids to come by and say, hey, look what I found, Mom. And which brings me to the second point, is the bird's pretty gruesome. I'm not going to show an up-close image of it because he got it bad. The entry and exit point where the 7200 volts went through the bird, it's extremely gruesome image, not something I'm going to show. It does demonstrate the powers of electricity for sure, but back to the animal thing. Usually what I'll do, so there's a field here with some real thick brush. I'm going to chuck the bird in the brush, and a fox or something, worst case scenario, some insects will have a free lunch. If I come across, let's say, a raccoon, it's in someone's backyard in town, there's kids and dogs around and stuff, I'll take my shovel, scoop them up, throw them on the bumper of the truck. It's a rural enough area that there's woods on every corner, so I'll dispose of the raccoon in a place where kids or pets aren't going to get at it. Some guys don't like to touch the animals at all because it's a biohazard, but most of the guys are pretty good with not leaving something in someone's backyard where there's kids playing around and stuff. But definitely something to check with your employer on what their expectations are with that. So what we'll do now, I'm going to call my dispatch. I'll show you guys the ring test on that insulator with the stick from the ground. It should work right from the ground, no problem. For those of you that missed that a few videos back, it's a quick way to check the integrity of an insulator. If there's any cracks in it whatsoever, it's going to have a thud, a dead sound when you hit it with metal. The hammerhead on the end of the telly stick is the metal. And if it rings, then you know the insulator's good. So we did find the fault, so the insulator's going to be good. But I'll just show you guys, that's an example. We'll go through refusing the cutout, which we haven't done for a long time. And I'll show you guys how the conversation goes with the dispatcher. Before we get to that, let's announce the winner of the fractal wood art. I've got to grab my other phone because I have a screenshot of it. So what we did on the video itself, I selected 20 comments to enter into the draw, and the winner's in the US somewheres. I think it was Trottier, S Trottier. Hey Aaron, my name is Steven, been watching your videos for years. I'm an apprentice working in MA, USA. I'm from Canada, so I don't know all my states. I should. MA, Massachusetts, I think. I'm going to pause the video and Google that right now. So yeah, Massachusetts. So Steven, if you're watching this video, we'll give you a couple weeks. We'll give you 2 weeks to respond. You can reply on this YouTube video itself if you want, but what I'll have you do is direct message me on either Facebook or Instagram, and once we connect privately, we'll get a 4-digit code, and then I'll have you enter that 4-digit code on your YouTube account underneath the comment, and that way I can confirm that it's not somebody pretending to be you to claim the prize. Anyhow, private message me and we'll go over the details, and yeah, congratulations. I hope you enjoy the fractal wood art, and let's get back to the video. I've got 8002 S008 open, patrolled the line, found the transformer also open at R5, and there was a bird on top of the can. Cleared the bird, refuse and close the transformer, and looking for permission to refuse and close 8002 S008.
see 8002 S008 open, patrolled, found a bird on the top of the transformer. You see you've cleared the bird, refused and closed the transformer. So go ahead and refuse and close 8002 S008, 10 amp fuse report.
10. You said I could go ahead and refuse and close 8002 S008, 10 amp fuse and report.
4, that is correct.
10-4 won't be long.
Clear.
So one more thing I'll mention just before we get started here, guys. See where that cutout's facing? Right in here. That's like, yeah, not gonna be fun walking through that. I could set up my truck on the road as well. We'll see how bad it is. But there's no reason why that cutout couldn't have been angled directly at where I'm standing right now, or even that driveway right there. So when you're framing these poles, guys, try and think about practical places to, directions to aim switches and whatnot. Perfectly good driveway, could have set up the truck off the road, had the switch on this side of the pole, no issues at all. So just kind of a bit of a pet peeve of mine, I guess. Not a huge deal, but just something when you're thinking ahead of the guys that are coming behind you to do the work. So we've got a T-type 10 amp fuse. You want to make sure you have the proper rating. When you open these packages, this guy here likes to come undone sometimes, so just make sure you don't lose that. So just give that fuse tail a yank, make it a little easier to shove it down through the fuse barrel. Cap of this one should be completely detached from the rest of the fuse link. There, so we'll pull that guy out. There's quite a debate around this part of it. Personally, I use a set of clines to both cut the fuse tail and tighten the nut. That nut doesn't have to be torqued right on there with a wrench by any means. Some guys beg to differ. 20 years and never had an issue with that nut not being tight enough, simply using your Lineman pliers. So we're just going to shove that guy through, pull it in tight. You want to make sure that is fully seated. Again with the cap, if this is a 200 amp barrel with a 200 amp fuse, you might want to put a wrench and snug that up a little bit, or you'll get a hot spot. These smaller doors, there's never any issues. And a few comments on this part of it here. A lot of guys will tell you to wrap that around the nut reverse, so that as you're tightening this guy up, it's not pulling on this guy, making it even tighter, because it can damage the fuse link inside. I usually wrap it around the traditional way you would with any wire, but what I do different, you can see where that wire is pretty well level right there, pulled pretty tight. I'll pull it tight, but then I'll take my thumb and push it down in, pushing some slack. Once I have a bit of slack in that fuse tail, I'll grab my clines and give that a snug, and we'll cut off the excess tail. You can see right now there's no tension on that fuse at all where I was pushing down, a little bit of slack in that. So it's not putting any tension on the fuse link itself. We'll cut that off. I've seen a few videos where guys are making fancy knots and stuff with that tail. Just cut it flush. Something else I'll show you. So this is the size of the wire going through the barrel right here, but that's not the fuse. The fuse link, the part that 7200 volts travels through that burns off if there's a fault, it's tiny. I've got an old one here I removed from that door. It's usually situated right up around here somewhere. Try to break it without breaking the fuse link. There we go. So we'll try to get a good shot of that. So these horseflies are getting on my nerves. That tiny little fuse link, you can see in comparison to my fingers how small it is. That's what's feeding your home. That tiny little wire, 7200 volts, and at 10 amps that'll burn off. Doesn't matter what the voltage is at 10 amps, that'll burn off that tiny little wire. So just before we close that in, I'll show you guys that ring test I was talking about. Alright, ring test went good, as we expected. Let's get that cutout door in there and close it back in. Well, we got her closed in, but it was rather unpleasant. I don't know a whole lot about this stuff, but those bushes in behind me there, I'm far from an expert on the topic, but those bushes in behind me are, I believe they are hawthorn bushes. We had a guy years ago have one of the thorns break off in his leg, and it got infected quite bad. Had to get some antibiotics and stuff. I've seen them in my videos before. I've never seen them green like this. That's where we were standing. We closed that switch in, and I could feel my leg getting pricked. And look at that. The size of the thorns on that. They're pretty rigid and sharp too. So this is all thorns here. Something to keep in mind that you'd not normally think of covering a tailboard. Could be a safety concern. Those thorns, if you run through that, you're going to get some break off in your skin. They'll go right through your clothes. But I looked online and it said it said the infection is called blackthorn. Apparently it's common in horses. There's a few different thorns and bushes that can cause that infection. But yeah, just thought I'd mention that. Let's call the dispatcher. Kind of wish the rain would come back now. It's getting hot out. I got that 8002 S008 refuse, close and holding.
8002 S008, close and holding, 10 empties.
10-4.
Derek, 21 clear.
22 clear. Alright, so that's it, guys. Thanks for stopping in, as always. At least we get to show a little bit of stuff in this video. I wasn't sure what we were getting into when we left the house. I appreciate you guys tuning in and watching. Really appreciate the engagement and comments in the channel. Before we sign off, something 100% not related to Linework. A good friend of mine sent me some videos yesterday. He went to Sable Island. He works in the air traffic control industry. And they flew over to Sable Island. And I don't know if you guys ever heard of that. It's over here on the coast of Nova Scotia. But what a wild spot. There's like 500 horses that roam free in this island. The island's kind of like a half moon shape. When he was there was thousands of birds kind of attacking them because their babies were nesting in the ground. So we sent a few of these shots to me. Just thought it was pretty interesting. If you're bored, you want to read up on something, check out Sable Island. It's a pretty interesting read. Other than that, hopefully we'll see you guys next week.